Yeah, we're excited to have Matt Lohstroh and Brent Whitehead from Giga Energy in. They are the founders of Giga Energy, and everybody who is in Bitcoin should know who they are. And if they don't, we're gonna try to talk to y'all and teach everybody about you today. So
I feel like you guys have like become some of the most notorious figures in this space. I think it was that one. What was that article? Yeah, like everybody probably bombarded you guys after that.
Yeah,
right?
there was one article in particular that kind of blew up around Nape.
Yeah. We Mackenzie Sagalos. She's
one of the best reporters in Bitcoin.
She is.
She is.
Awesome.
Really? Oh yeah.
Really? Okay.
Really gets the idea down.
I always see that she's like listening in on some Twitter Spaces on Bitcoin. I'm like, dang, like she's on top of it. She's always researching more and more. But she pulled us aside in Nape and did an interview, and then that thing went everywhere. We had people from all over the world that were reaching out to us.
I've been wanting to ask, because we've been running a gun and y'all been doing the same thing. I've been wanting to ask, like, what has the outcome of that been? Whether it's positive, negative. Mm-hmm. I mean, how has it affected BD efforts? How's it affected like the company?
Yeah, I mean, so naturally, like, we didn't think much of the article. Like, we knew it was going to come out, like, heard about it, like, great, came out that morning. We're like, okay, nothing much. And then by 12 p.m., it, like, blown up. And so it's really helped. Like, there's been international inquiries. We sell a lot of our equipment as well for the flare mitigation. But on that side of things, it's just really... One, it kind of gave this weird sense of credibility for, like, a CNBC article. Like, that's the primary source.
It's third-party validation, right?
Yeah,
right.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, it's really helped.
That's awesome.
Credibility was the biggest thing for us from that.
The good thing also is they did not accuse you guys of wearing skinny jeans at well sites like my recent
Wait, did you got accused of that?
Yeah, that Bloomberg story that came out last week. Michael Smith, he wrote it, and right at first paragraph he's like, yeah, Justin Ballard gets out of his green Nissan Frontier, as if that's like a really big aggressive like oil field truck. It's not. It's like you get made fun of if you drive that out to the oil field, right? And wearing his skinny jeans and lace up work boots. And I'm like, oh shit, man, really? You gotta put me on blast like that, right? And number one, they weren't skinny jeans. And number two, it was a gray Nissan Frontier. It wasn't a green one. But
at least it was a pickup truck. I do feel like vehicles matter for validation with some of these operators in the off-grid space. Like Matt used to pull up in his Hyundai Elantra, just jumping through the rocks.
Hey, man.
I did. Yeah.
I've done the same thing. I was in Wyoming and I drove a Jetta out to a well site in January.
Oh.
And I don't know how I even got it there. And I'm not gonna lie, this was 2018. I was wearing skinny jeans to that one. So not only did I was wearing skinny jeans, but I also was driving a Jetta to a well site in Wyoming, snow, ice, all kinds of. I made it there though, and that was the big thing. But yeah, so I was wearing skinny jeans at that point. I did not wear skinny jeans on this last one though.
I'll never forget Matt. I one of the very first sites we had, we were driving in, and I was riding with the operator, and he was like a good old country boy, just like boots, packing a dip in, like talking about he's about to go buy some Coors Light, like truck just like dust all on the floorboard. And he was driving in, and we were having some internet issues trying to figure out the networking. And we were like looping through, and he had never met Matt before. And he came around a corner and on the curve right before the well. And there was Matt standing in shorts, Crocs, with a laptop, one headphone on, one headphone off like this, and a router poking out of his backpack. And he was trying to get internet in different spots. And he goes, "What in the world is that?" I was like, "That's my co-founder. That's Matt."
Hey, that was last month. That sounds like me, man. That's how I was when I go. It would drive Ryan nuts too when I show up. Like he came out to our site when we got the J site first going, and I was out there screwing with the generators trying to get them running. This is like right when we got going, and I'm out there by myself. And I'm glad no like insurance adjuster or anybody showed off. I had no t-shirt on. I had basketball shorts, flip-flops, and it was like 100 degrees. It felt like freaking Saudi Arabia out there. It was brutal. And I'm out there screwing with the gen sets, and I can't hear nothing. He shows up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Ryan's such an oil field like ops guy and like safety and all that. And He got all over me about it. And I'm like, I'm a lawyer and I'm not worried about it. I'm out here just freaking trying to get these gen sets running. Shit, man. But
that's what I love, though. I love like the stories that everybody has with the off-grid space.
Well, and with you guys were talking about the image with like oil and gas guys and like getting out of sight. That is important. Like they do look at that stuff when you go out there. And I actually think that is one of the things that struck me about you two when I first met y'all is that you guys do, and this is not offensive, you especially feel like an oil and gas guy. You know what I mean?
Saying I'm redneck.
Yeah, it's basically what I'm saying without saying it.
Luke Casey's.
Matt, it's not bad. You're like me, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brent, it's like he's got the feel of an oil and gas guy, and I think that does help y'all when you're talking to operators because you can't talk the game. And that was one of the things early on for me that I noticed is that the biggest way to get these operators on board with getting into Bitcoin mining, even from a standpoint of like offtake, right? Just looking at it from I'm trying to sell gas, and is selling that to a Bitcoin miner a viable route? You guys having the ability to talk that language and look the look and make them comfortable is a huge deal, especially considering the fact that you're 15 years old. Like,
thanks, Justin.
Getting past though your age, right, is that you guys do seem to have a lot of knowledge about the oil field operations, and that's a big part of getting past the initial apprehension that they probably have about Bitcoin. But yeah, what is your guys' experience? Because you guys do have a lot of knowledge there, and was that just developed through the time you've been with Giga and got that going, or what was your guys' backgrounds prior to that? And kind of tell us the story of like how you guys got to know what you know about oil field operations and all that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're the old guy.
Yeah, so I mean, my family, I come from I'm third generation oil and gas, come from an oil and gas family. My dad has a small E&P company in Beaumont, and looking back, I'm really glad that it was like a smaller operation that was just, kind of family and just a few other people. We probably have like 100, 150 wells under management, but most of them are like smaller depleted wells. But that was great for me growing up because it wasn't like this huge company where you had to have all these like safety, right? Like I could go work out there on the weekends with the guys, or during the summer, I'd be out on a crew, and you learn a lot being hands-on in the oil field. And that was not only oil wells, but he also does commercial disposal facilities. So I kind of got to learn that aspect. And then when I was growing up, he had a service company that he sold in 2011. They did pipelines. So I kind of got to see like the flares, the pipelines, all that growing up. And I think that was invaluable. The experiences that I saw and I learned through that. And I realized how much of a value that was going to be when we started getting deeper into our company. And we were meeting with some really big companies, like big oil and gas private equity groups. And one day I was talking to my dad on the phone. I said, they haven't even mentioned how we're going to hook this stuff up. They haven't even asked about the separator, like, or anything. He said, well, son, like, there's a big difference between oil and gas finance. And the thing is, everyone has their talent, but there's a big difference between finance, oil and gas finance, and boots on the ground.
Right.
And a lot of people never go do boots on the ground. And I think that there's so much value in that. And a lot of people don't want to get their hands dirty. And so I think the fact that we were eager to get our hands dirty, eager to dive in, and also went that blue collar route. There's like Bitcoin mining's meant for blue collar guys. Right. I really believe that. You have to understand finance and stuff enough to understand how money works, get orange pilled and stuff like that. But really and truly, if you're in a high rise in New York and you're planning on doing a big Bitcoin mining operation off grid, you're probably gonna have a hard time doing it if you've never stepped foot out in the oil field.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Matt, I know you may not have came from the oil field. Yeah. I didn't either, but you definitely have picked up on it. And obviously, because you guys are having so much success, but what was your background? Like, where did you come from, and kind of how did you get into this in the first place? It really just tell us the story of how Giga got going, because I mean, for the people that haven't read that story and kind of heard it, it'd be nice for them to have kind of that backstory of like how y'all got together and put this cool thing together.
Yeah. So I got into Bitcoin in 2016. I was in high school, became obsessed with it, just based on the fact that I could make money.
Yeah.
then I started kind of learning more and more about it. I was in college. I was like reading the Bitcoin Standard at the same time I was taking my macroeconomics class. I was like, this one says inflation's good. The other one says inflation's bad. Like, so I just kind of had this natural understanding of like the kind of like dichotomy and the problem. And so I started growing in that, loving it. And then, so I went to college known as the Bitcoin guy and was obsessed with it and quickly realized my degree was not going to be applicable to my passions. And
what were you studying?
I studied finance at
Okay.
college, right? I cannot operate an Excel model for the life of me.
And you guys are Aggies.
Yes.
Both
So
of it,
Texas A&M Grags, Giga, Gig M.
Ah,
So that is where the
I
name
didn't
comes.
even get that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
now I know.
gigawatt.
Well, and gigawatt.
Well, that's
right?
what I
So-
thought it went.
Well, and the
Two birds,
Gig
one
is
stone.
highlighted. Gig is highlighted in the
Chuck
logo.
was actually the one who brought that up the other day.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't put two and two
I didn't
together.
either.
I know. Yeah, we
I
need to
like
make the
that.
maroon logo.
Yeah.
That's like the FedEx arrow. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah, it's like-
it's like so
good
subtle.
job.
Yeah.
I like that.
So yeah, I was obsessed with Bitcoin, worried about how I was going to be able to create my own job because I didn't have technical skills. I couldn't program at the time. And so went in, I'd been best friends with Brent for like 2 years up until then. Saw a tweet, Steve Barber on Upstream Data tweeted out Griffin Habey and Connor Murphy set up of a Bitcoin mining machine at Oilfield. And I like dropped everything I was doing. I called Brent. I was like, do you have natural gas? Like, can we do this? And that was in July of 2019. Brent said,
June or July.
yeah.
So was it the first setup on your family's assets?
No, it was a friend of a family. Basically,
Okay.
it was in the Beaumont area.
Okay,
But I mean, keep in mind, this was, and I don't even think Griffin had joined
No.
Olympia.
I think it was,
but
maybe it was just
it
Connor.
was just Connor. It was
Yeah.
Connor's fan. It was somewhere in like
Yeah.
Central Texas. And I'll never forget, we flew up there and it was still, the boxes he builds now are really, really nice. And the ones that he was
because
doing
we
at the
flew to
time
Canada.
were nice, but you can tell like there's been so many iterations since then. Like it was,
right.
he was like, well, I'm gonna rent out some space at this shop and we're gonna start working on this. And that's when I realized like this is really early. And it was only 10 MCF a day that we were 10 to 12 that we were consuming with the little, it wasn't even a hash hut. They're called ohm units.
Yeah.
And they're like little boxes. So
That was that unit came online in October of 2019.
Okay.
So,
And y'all are still in college then?
oh yeah.
yeah, we were juniors in college.
Yeah,
Jeez.
when it got
That's
delivered,
awesome.
we drove straight from college and then did the deployment over the weekend and got it running.
Oh,
and
yeah. We'd be at like a party. I'd be like, check this out. I can turn this generator off remotely. Like it's like the coolest party trick, right?
Yeah.
So we were
that's
having fun
awesome.
with it. And then just so that was October 2019, right? COVID hit that next
Right.
semester. We actually ended up quitting college.
Oh,
in
really?
December of 2019,
Hell yeah.
we took the opinion. We told
Same.
our parents it was going to be a break.
Twice.
Right.
And took that time off. COVID hit, so like we kind of like really got away with that. Timed it. Decided that we would actually go back to college because all our classes were online.
Yeah, COVID actually, that sounds bad, but COVID helped us with finishing college because everything was remote.
Right.
So we
My degree was
lucked
not
out.
remote. Yeah.
Yeah, tell them the story about when you were taking a test and you got in trouble for the virtual background.
Oh yeah. I was
Oh,
taking
you
a test. Yeah, and
okay,
then
yeah,
told me
well-
to turn off my virtual background, and I was like, "Well, I'm in a forest right now in East
we were
Texas."
out at a data center and he was taking it in the woods on a chair next to the cellular modem.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks to COVID, we were able to finish our degrees because my degree would not have been online. And it cost us like no marginal extra time because we could just do it remotely.
Man, that's freaking cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That is what impresses me about y'all the most is your age, number one. And like we were just saying, I mean, I'm 41 years old and I'm trying to get stuff going still. And I'm looking at you two and I'm like, golly, these guys are freaking turning computers off when they're at a party in freaking college. Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't sell yourself short. You guys are rock stars, and we look up to y'all in so many ways.
Thanks, Brent. Your check's in the mail, buddy.
Appreciate it.
But go ahead.
No, it's I will say now we're at like I have seen where it's great. Our youthfulness to me is an advantage being young because a lot of our team is very young guys. We can just go and work because we. Sounds bad, but we don't have a life outside of like Giga. Like this is true. You know what? One of the guys one day, I said something to him. He goes, "This is all I got, man." I was like, "Yeah, that's a sad way to put it, but like, let's to the moon, man." But at the same time, it does affect us with the energy space because energy is a very seniority based group, industry. And that's why I would say like the CNBC article and like Vice and stuff like that was very helpful for us, and why we also focused really hard on branding, everything being blue, Gigabox, Giga, like
those branding's on point.
Cram that down,
really good.
everything, everybody's throat, because that's how you establish credibility. It's like, great, you don't trust a 23-year-old, that's fine, but trust what we've built, because you can look at it, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it.
Well, see, that's impressive because y'all recognize that, right? At your age, you guys recognize that all those things are important. They all play a factor in like your success, and you're overcoming your age as if it's a negative. I think it's a positive. You guys look like little like prodigies. It's great. So keep it up. But tell us a little bit about your business, like, because I do think you guys are different. And obviously, I do know about it, but I mean, for everybody, kind of give the spiel on Giga and what y'all do. Especially the biggest thing that I think sets y'all apart is the manufacturing arm of it. And that is another thing. I hate to go back to your age so much, but manufacturing is hard, and it's a very complex kind of industry to get in my opinion, and to do it kind of even straight out of school, but while you're in school it's really impressive to me. And is that part of why you picked where you picked to kind of set your headquarters up? But just kind of go into that. And Matt, maybe you want to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, Giga, our goal is to reduce methane emissions in the oil field with Bitcoin mining.
Right.
The way we did that is through data centers, generators, and computers. The trick in that, though, is that equation is extremely heavy on the capital expenditure. And that's what we realized from day one. So we started off, we bought a brand new generator. We're like, this is great, but it's really expensive.
Right.
Then we went the route of like, okay, now let's go on like the equivalent of Craigslist for generators and buy equipment. That was very hit or miss, right? So like, okay, we can't scale if we do that. Then we went back to the route of like, what if we just start manufacturing our own stuff? So it started with the boxes or the data centers or the cans, whatever you want to call it. And that's the kind of 40-foot shipping container that houses the computers. It's gotten down to the point where we now have custom manufacturing of all of our electrical bus systems, PDUs, the whole 9 yards. And we've been very specific on that of like lowering the CapEx, lowering the lead times. Because it's not just about getting a 50% discount on your product. It's also about the fact that you own your supply chain and you don't have to wait on somebody else making
especially right now. Like, I mean, supply chains have been so jammed up ever since COVID. It's like, I don't know if we ever make a full recovery.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't. I'll be surprised if we do, honestly.
Yeah, we're still seeing like the effects of it like 2 years later. It's crazy.
Especially price increasing.
Yeah.
So you guys are you guys are making the containers.
Yeah.
Right?
So we make the containers.
Making those from scratch, or are you taking existing containers and then?
Yeah. So we take one trip shipping container. So stuff that like it is sold to us coming off the ports in Houston. Like it comes to us. It gets refurbished. We go through, paint the whole thing Giga Blue. So we can build a box in about 3 days.
Okay.
Yes. Start to finish when all the parts are in front of us.
All hands and all parts in hand.
Yeah. All parts.
Like that's where the supply chain affects you.
Yeah.
Right? But. And I don't know if people realize. I know because we were manufacturing some of ours for a little while. That's really fast. That's
really fast.
Really fast.
Yeah, we've made it very cookie cutter.
Right. How long did it take you to get it down to that? Because I know it couldn't have started.
No, it was like 2 months a container.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first one we did in our backyard, like, was like not. My dad was like, "Son, when's this gonna get out of my yard now?" And I was like,
"You're killing my grass."
Yeah, you're killing my grass. Well, it's like a slip and slide back here.
I knew we needed to move when I was like just dreaming, giving him all these plans. There was 2 of them there on the concrete, and I said, "Give it a couple weeks, we may have 11 out there." And he goes, "Please don't do that." I was like, that's fair. But 2 months probably.
Yeah, 2 months. Yeah, a long time.
From there.
Yeah, and it also iterate too, right? Because like our CapEx is also cut like probably like 3x or 90% on.
Where were you able to cut most of those costs?
Electrical.
Okay.
So we started like custom manufacturing all of our bus systems right to the point where we were buying just like this ridiculous name brand stuff and kind of going in like figuring out how to work with factories directly and get all that down.
Because the problem is like we were buying stuff for like industrial plants and our residential, like our very first stuff was like residential boxes.
So was it like overkill?
We were retrofitting. Well, it's just the thing is, you only need, we had like 5 different things and we only needed like 2 of them of the 5.
Mhm.
And so, but the way it was built is we were having to kind of retrofit it or like take all this extra stuff that you didn't need and just use it because that's like the best you could find at the time was like the way it was set up. And now we have really optimized of like this type of cable, this type of box. And that's what Matt's just been awesome with. Him and Shiv have just figured out how to like work directly with the manufacturers on customizing stuff, getting custom built boxes, so that you don't have all this extra stuff with it. And you're not buying at local supply stores that it's 3 times more the cost.
That's only a problem in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, and part of the thing with Bitcoin mining is too, it's give me something and I'm going to squeeze every piece out of it, right? That type of engineering is very backwards to the regular world of engineering.
Yeah.
The regular world of engineering is like, let's make something and like add like a bunch of like safety measures to it. So like it's good. So like we're going in, like trying to like make sure like we're right on the margin, and making sure we have no waste or no wasted capital. And so that's something that has been also kind of unique working with a bunch of old guys that don't think like that.
It's difficult working with electricians on that. And like the example I always give is like, it would be like if you had a house that an electrician was wiring up, instead of saying, what breaker box you're going to put in, can I run this appliance, that appliance? You'd be saying, how many ovens, microwaves, and refrigerators can I run on this before it trips, right? Like you're like basically retrofitting the opposite.
You got to find an electrician who really knows his shit then, huh?
Yeah. Would that be probably, I mean, one of the most difficult aspects of the whole manufacturing process is just figuring out, like, how did you land on who you use? Is it all cost-based, or was it, like, how difficult was it to find an electrician that's going to handle Bitcoin mining stuff?
Well, the problem was we were the electrician for a while.
Whew.
Yeah. So because people want to do what
our boxes, not boxes.
Okay.
No,
I know that. I know that.
Keep in mind, there was about 2.5 years where we refused to sell a box or anything like that. Like people say, hey, can you do it for us? We're like, no, sorry. Like we don't believe in it yet. And so, but yeah, no, for the longest time we were actually doing it. And then it got to the point where we had learned it and we actually understood the electricity of it. And then we went out, hired electricians, and people were like, okay, and then kind of told them what to do on that front, right? And they're like, okay, that math makes sense.
Man, when I was y'all's age, when you were doing that, I was like trying to make firework bombs and like, you know, like stuff like that. Like, you were doing that on a much more massive scale.
They still had the same effect.
Sometimes I felt like we were making a bomb. Like, I was like, man, there's a lot of power.
You're going to turn this on, right, Matt? Are you going to turn this on or you're flip the switch?
So do y'all you have like a single style of container? Do you have multiple styles of containers?
Yeah, so we have 2 styles, like a 20 foot and a 40 foot. And so it's just more computers or less computers, a little bit of economies of scale. We keep that like very cookie cutter on that end of things.
So that's one part of the business. Then you guys have the generators.
Yes.
Right. And so you guys aren't manufacturing those, but you are refurbishing existing units, correct?
Yeah. So the technical term would be called a machine shop. So we take an engine, strip every single moving part off of it, take the block, which would be like the chassis of a car, soak it in an acid vat, do block work repair, and then like take everything that was old and then build all the way back up brand new.
After you bought that first original one where you bought it new, is that when you decided, like, just from the capital expenditure point, we've got to reduce this? And so
correct. I was like, that's the goal I want to get to. But like, how do I get there?
We did probably 6 generators.
Yeah, we did 6 used
though.
Oh, really?
That.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just find it's better to rebuild.
Matt's a good mechanic now.
I was gonna say, I think you guys have, you know.
So how are you? So are you guys pulling the? I mean, obviously you're pulling the crankshaft out, you're pulling the rods out, you're pulling the pistons out. For things of that scale, do they make like rebuild kits, or are you having to like manufacture new part? I've built motors like my whole life on cars, but I'm curious at that scale, like how do you actually do that?
So the nice thing is, like we work on like a particular Caterpillar series called the 35 series. That's like very like prolific in the oil field. So there's over 1 million like types of these engines.
So it's probably like the most popular one.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Toyota Camry of the oil field. And so there's now this proliferation in the market of aftermarket parts. So there's factories in Houston that have like patents on the valve stem setup for the heads. Like, so it gets like super granular. So like it's a factor of multiple parts where we're getting like specific aftermarket parts that are actually higher quality than Cat on the OEM side. And then of course like Caterpillar parts that we get from the dealers, like But you take every single bolt off and then put it all back together, like from the ground up, like crank everything.
Yeah, that's smart of you guys to find the one that is the most popular, because then there is that kind of like aftermarket for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's no different than like if you're trying to rebuild a motor, like if you want to go build a Chevy LS, like there's a huge aftermarket for it. You want to go build something like, I don't know, something a lot more rare. Like there's like nothing.
Yeah,
there's like absolutely nothing out there.
And the allowance for optimization then.
Yeah.
So then we start looking at, again, right, we do the same thing. It's like, okay, this engine, the point of it is, how can we squeeze every single piece of horsepower it has? Not like, let's make it last like 20 years.
Yeah.
Because keep in mind, like the people who like are buying these engines is for nursing homes, hospitals, like data centers, like backup things. Like we're not trying to do that. We're trying to squeeze every marginal amount of like MCF like value out of that as we can. Like and smash it into like 4 years.
Because when you model this stuff for Bitcoin mining, your main cost is your ASICs, where most models that we see come across, you basically have a residual value of almost nothing after 5 years because of computer increases, right? So you have all this CapEx. It's like how fat, like what is your payback period on it, right? And if you're rebuilding that generator in 5 years versus 10 years, right? What's your Bitcoin denominated returns at that point in time? If you saved, 50% on CapEx. And that's also to add to that point, that's why we focused on reciprocating engines instead of turbines, is because with turbines, you have, there's so much more like it's such a niche industry, and there's so many caterpillars out there that the engine is not just for generators. We've bought engines off of compressor packages, off of like pump packages, and basically refurb them, and you change the flywheel, you change that, and it's the exact same engine. It's just, what is it pushing horsepower to, right? And so that's why we really focus on that CAT series and focus on the reciprocating engines, because you can go find a mechanic that can work on an engine, but has never worked on a generator in their life, but they can still work on your engine, because usually when you have problems, it stems from the engine, right? There's going to be something wrong with it. Generator alternator, it really just spins, right? Like that's like its job. Unless if something breaks on it, it's probably something major. But unless it's like a voltage regulator or something. So to me, you end up having so many more options of being able to fix problems and be able to like keep from downtime being a problem for your operation.
It's funny though, the thing that broke the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back, was not the price. It was the lead time. Okay. So August of 2021, we ordered, worked with a third-party manufacturer to redo 2 generators for us. It was going to be done by November. No problem, we promise. Worst case scenario. Whole COVID excuse came in, right? Just kept on getting delayed. By November, we decided, like, screw this. Like, we're going to go out, like, recruit a director of power for overseeing all the manufacturing. We laid the cement, got a 20-ton crane in, and like already had an engine in there and 3 mechanics by the time we received those engines in March of 2022.
Where'd you guys find these mechanics? They're pretty popular to work on these.
Man, we're living in like the blue collar capital of the world in Belmont.
Like
it's like we go out there, we throw a diamond.
It's like who can work on cats and
well, the thing is, there are so many people from the area that I'm from that have tech jobs and went to tech schools and are so specialized at their skills, and they're rock stars. Like they're just awesome at what they do. And so we don't want to move our manufacturing out of that area, because those guys are the best guys you could ever ask for. And we just knew a lot of these people.
We knew one. Yeah, we like just found one guy that had been working on this specific engine for 13 years.
Wow.
I think he's like a genius at it, like knows everything about it, like every part. Right now, of course, he was on the compressor side, right? But that doesn't matter, because he's creating something that moves horsepower, and then we'll have someone on the alternator side.
How much horsepower do these things create?
You're looking at like 1,800 for like a standard.
1,800. Yeah. And then what does it translate into? How much it can power?
Like 1.25 megawatts.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, like that's the problem is, if you were to ask that question to like a generator salesman on the used side, there's all these different levels of like, is it continuous power output? Is it prime power output? Is it emergency? Is it standard? Right? It's like, well, I don't know. I don't care. I just want to have like level power output. And like, that's the problem, is like navigating through all those problems.
So on most of these setups, do you run 1? Do you run 5? And is it one that's taking all the load all the time, or do you kind of like rotate these things?
Yeah. So it's a good question. So what we do, you can parallel engines together. So you can have like 2 engines to one box. The problem is, if one engine goes down, that load is the same. And so it's pulling the same amount of load on 50% of the power output. So the second engine goes down. So you can have like a good engine, a bad engine, and like it doubles your problems.
Yeah.
What we do is we actually isolate our electrical systems inside our boxes.
Okay.
And so even if we have 2 gens on one box, one's running the first half of the box, the other one's running the second half of the box. And we can do that because we can mess around on the manufacturing side of things. But generally, we try and keep it 1 box to 1 gen at all times.
So is that kind of the size of project you guys look for is like 1 megawatt up, or is it?
It depends, right? So like our appetite for something has to be is like a higher threshold, like the larger you extend the radius, right?
Yeah.
So like we'd go for a 50 MCF a day flare if it was on our backyard. But if you're asking us to go to Pennsylvania, right, we're going to need at least like 2 million a day.
Yeah.
Something
Okay.
like that.
All right. Yeah, that's a good point. But for the folks that like any oil and gas operators that might end up listening, what do they need to know when they call you guys? Like, are these guys going to come do the project, and what are the criteria that you're looking at for that? And I mean, gas quality, like how's all that stuff factoring in?
Yeah.
Are you guys like doing like full turnkey, like somebody, Acme operating reaches out to you guys, and it's not only like, hey, here's a generator, here's this, like, but you guys are also, do you consult them on their setting it all up to, or?
Yes.
No?
Yeah. So we do that as well, right? I mean, we have 2 revenues in the business, right? We have the sales side, and then we have like the gas purchasing agreement for the flare side.
Okay.
So on both those sides of things, we can like, okay, awesome. You don't want to put up the cockpit? Great. We'll come out and we'll do it for you. On the other side of things, okay, you want to own the Bitcoin production and make sure you can do that flare mitigation, like they can run that too.
Has there been like one is happening more than the other, or like
is it 50-50?
Is it really?
Yeah.
It really is. It varies. Like, when we have a project, we may be really busy. I would say what's interesting about that, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like typically when we have the most projects pushed to us is when like market can like margins are the tightest.
Right.
Like we have like green light, go take it. Because our whole point of our company is in-house power generation, vertical integration. So you have cheap CapEx, you have cheap OpEx. So we don't go rent generators. Our cost of our generator, even if you amortize it all out and take in depreciation, is probably 20% of what you could go, or like what it costs to rent a generator, right?
And you have a hard asset, right?
And you have a hard asset when you're done,
right?
Banks love
That's
like single-digit interest rates.
Yeah, banks are comfortable with financing stuff like that because they've done that stuff before. They've been doing this for 30 years. Like they've been doing it longer than Bitcoin's been around.
Right.
But when bull markets happen, of course, everybody, there's a lot of product sales is what I would say. Like you can see what I like about being on the product side as a company is we get to see the demand curve, just how that demand curve changes based on hash price.
Right.
Like you can see things get slower as like a lot, like when Bitcoin was at $60,000. Oh my gosh, everybody, I need 50 megawatts and 72 hours. If it's any more hours, right? Like everybody's, there's so much noise in the space, and there is a lot of sales because of that. What I would say is the noise goes away on our project side because it makes it, at the same time that we're selling a lot of stuff, it makes it hard for us to bid on flare projects because you have all these extra people that are just everyone's starting their pilot project, right? They're like, well, I'll overpay for this first one. And then it's like, my God, every single project I've looked at is someone else's pilot project.
You're like the only guy who I've never seen do a small pilot project.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
everybody just pilot project.
You just went to straight to the top. Right?
Yeah, well, I will say our very first experience was like 60 MCF a day, but that we were at oil and gas company.
But how quickly did you go from that to the?
Oh, immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when I left when I left Century. I was like, screw this.
Impressive.
I'm gonna go do this.
Yeah, no one does that.
That's very impressive. But what I'm saying is, you don't see like
right.
There's a lot of pilot projects as a buzzword.
What is it like? Like, so I think let's go through some like the basic questions that I think a lot of people would ask. What is like, how many MCF do you need to like get started minimum?
And
then what does that get you? Like,
on an application,
how many containers, how many miners?
Yeah. So like the smallest application we could sell would be a 200 kilowatt generator set. That's A55 Cummins. That would consume about 50 MCF a day.
Okay.
That would power about 60 computers.
Okay.
The generator would cost $100,000. The container would cost about $50,000, and the computers would probably cost somewhere between 80 to 120 grand.
Okay.
Like that would be, and then that's going to get you a payback right now, probably about in 24 months if Bitcoin stays flat.
So roughly, if I remember the numbers right, 300 grand to get started, payback in 24 months.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
So
even at today's numbers.
numbers.
Yeah.
And that
it may be a little bit longer with today's numbers.
A little bit,
It
right.
fluctuates so much.
But and people don't realize this though. Those price of miners fluctuate just as well.
Well,
They
it's
fluctuate up with the profitability very quickly.
They
but-
track their total future cash flows.
Right,
So it's like buying
right.
like a PV20. It's always going to be
Yeah,
PV20. It's just like
right.
what's the price when you're buying it?
See, this is why the oil and gas companies like these. They're talking about PV20 and all this stuff. Yeah.
That's
Love
why.
it.
That's
Yeah,
why it's
I
so
love
on the last episode, right? Talking about all just the analogies
Right.
between oil and gas and
Right.
on
It's the
Bitcoin
same
side.
business to me.
Yep. Yeah, it's no
And-
different.
Right. And so you literally are trying to just be the lowest cost producer. And cutting CapEx or coming in at the right time is a big deal. Right.
Correct.
It's a huge deal. And
Yep.
and timing the market, like you're right, like all the noise that happens when things are going good and you're getting all these calls and everybody wants to do it. And then when it goes down, the part, and I said this last time too, the part that drives me nuts is when the price goes down and you got still oil and gas guys are like, well, I mean, you're going to be okay, but Bitcoin going to go away? And it's like, no, just like oil and gas isn't going away when it goes negative, you know?
I haven't seen negative hash price
Right,
yet.
right. So it'll come back. It takes time. It's a commodity type of market.
Yep.
And it always comes back. But with the market being what it is, are you guys shifting your focus, or you still just kind of keep the same business plan and or are you looking for opportunities right now to try to scoop up some kind of cheap asset opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think a market like this shows where our business model shines.
Right.
Right? Like
Right.
people are getting liquidated left and right because they rented generators, they over leveraged on ASICs, and they did all the best practices that we recommended against.
Right.
So it's kind of refreshing seeing it's like, hey, we're still liquid, we're still running. Like we knew this point would come because Bitcoin mining is simply like an energy arbitrage. Every time with an arbitrage, you have shrinking margins, and we know macro, like that's where it's headed.
Right.
And so you should prepare for it now, even when the times are good.
Yep.
And I mean that's what we really looked at. And so I mean we're just kind of thankful that our business model's shining and nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
We didn't take a bunch of leverage at $90 a terahash S19, $10,000 S19s, and I think a lot of people thought that hash price would just stay at 35 cents.
Well, maybe you should explain what hash price is. You keep on mentioning it.
Yeah, I guess the group may not know.
Good call,
You're better at explaining hash price.
I mean, so like a hash is a unit of computing power akin to a barrel of oil. A hash price is like would have a value associated with it, spot price on the market. So no different than like dollars per barrel of oil. So Brent's just like simply saying like, what is the going rate for a unit of computing power with Bitcoin mining?
I say this almost every single time I talk somewhere. It's you got, instead of a wellbore, you have an ASIC. Instead of a wellbore producing hydrocarbons, you got a ASIC producing terahash. You're selling that for Bitcoin instead of selling your hydrocarbons for fiat.
Yep,
that's it.
There you go.
It's other than that, it's virtually the same thing.
The way that I think of it is almost like an oil well, where you have your initial production. And it would be the opposite of how the oil field works, in the sense of it'd be like if you IP'd a well and the production stayed flat, right? Your hash rate stays flat, but your dollar per barrel just keeps going down and down.
I'll tell you the way I make the analogy is that's your difficulty, right? Right. That's your decline curve.
Yep.
So you got your IP, and then your difficulty rate is going to drive your profitability down.
Yep. And that's your decline curve.
And it's your decline curve. So I mean, I've been spending the past 2 years really just talking with oil and gas companies, and even more so now that I'm kind of back on the legal side, is spending a just shit ton of time like talking to them about how this works from the modeling side, and like how do I show you that you actually know this business really, really well. You just don't understand the mechanics of it quite so much. But, and we were talking about this with Griffin and Gideon, is like from a technical standpoint, oil and gas operations dwarf the technical knowledge that's required for that versus this. I mean, it's not even close, but it's crazy how much guys that are dealing with, drilling 2 miles down into the ocean floor still get, screwed up or tripped up with Bitcoin mining.
Yep.
But how much of your time do you guys find that you're spending trying to educate folks still, or is it more of we get phone calls that, hey, we wanted this, and we go.
Yeah,
we go
that's
put it
really
down.
how it is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we have a number on
So
the
I'm
website.
greasing the wheels for you guys.
You are.
That's
Is
right.
everybody orange pilled, or they just see an opportunity to make money?
No, people are just trying to figure out how to like lower methane emissions or
Right.
make some money off of flare or capture like an ARB out there.
What percentage are orange pilled? Do you think that reach out to you guys?
Oh, they'll reach out to them.
Like
a
10,
more.
sadly small number.
Yeah,
Really?
10%, yeah.
That's I feel like that's so surprising.
No,
I feel like
it can be the Trojan horse that gets them into it,
yeah,
right?
Right.
And like that's like everyone has like their story about how they got into Bitcoin, right? It's not because they just went online like we're looking for some like
Yeah.
libertarian currency.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But I think it is kind of the Trojan horse, but that's good. That's a good thing to get it started for. It's a good reason. I mean, I honestly don't think there's any reasons anybody should be flaring anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
there's virtually no reason at
Absolutely.
all. And that should be a positive for like actually both sides of the aisle. And
Yep.
you're monetizing something that's been wasted. That's good. It's capitalistic. Let's take advantage of that.
Yep.
And you're making money off something that is obviously good for the environment.
yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
think anybody, even in the oil and gas world, there's literally nobody that's like cheering on a flare.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
everybody wants to see
Right.
value created.
Right.
And that's what to me, what's the most shocking thing I still see in the space is players that are still flaring huge volumes
Right.
that won't entertain Bitcoin mining.
I agree, man. It's
And
crazy.
I'm like, not only can you make money off of this, from our side, we're looking at this and saying like, what a great narrative for Bitcoin. What a great
Wonderful.
thing for, everyone wants cleaner air, right?
Yeah,
and we are truly lowering emissions,
Yeah.
no matter how you frame it, for taking a flare and making it into power. So I just don't understand why there's still so many groups that haven't jumped on the bandwagon of this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just literally a lack of understanding. And honestly, there's a lot of like not wanting to admit that you might have been wrong about something early on.
Yeah.
And that's something that especially us older dudes have trouble with a lot of times, is just being like, you know what, we took a position that things have changed. And I realize now that this is a real market and that this is a real industry, and let's go be a part of it. I think it's kind of a lot of like holding on to old positions.
On the flip side, is there anything that's been surprising, like on like in a positive note, like the kinds of companies, kinds of people that have reached out?
Yeah, I would say we've been surprised by some groups. I would say a lot of people ask us a lot of times, they say, are you scared that they're just going to go do this themselves?
Yeah.
Like, well, my hot take is I really don't see oil and gas companies pushing that very hard
I don't either.
anytime in the near future. And the reason is, why should they?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if groups like us can come in and
Right.
take away the flaring and fix that problem, and they realize that the global demand for oil right now, and they're already like, they can't get their wells drilled fast enough.
Yeah.
The wells in which typically flare are the wells that are least profitable for that operator, right? If they have a well here and they have a well a mile away that's hooked up to a pipeline, chances are the one that's flaring is a lot less economical than the one with a pipeline. That's just logic.
Yeah.
So an oil and gas company, if you look at them and say, hey, if you put together this whole operations team and you go and you spend on this flare $5 million, you can get rid of your flare. They're probably looking at that and saying, or I can take that $5 million and I can just drill another well.
Right.
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 And that right now, $100 barrel in oil is a 300% IRR for some of these people, or 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot faster payback period.
Yeah.
Plus, it's what they've been doing for 60 years.
Right.
It's what they're good at.
It's what they are.
It's
Yeah.
what they are. So
Yeah.
like, I don't blame them for saying, just come to get this gas.
Right.
We don't want a flare. Take it. We're going to help lower the emissions on this well. And now we can focus on what we do best, which is drill oil wells.
Right.
So that's why I'm still shocked when groups like us come in and say, we'll pay for the infrastructure. We'll pay for everything. You just get rid of your flare and give it to us. And then they still don't entertain it.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
So what's
What are you
what's the deal? Yeah, that's mind blowing for one. What does a deal look like between these guys? They reach out. If you're coming in, you're paying for the infrastructure. They're giving you the gas, but now they're also not flaring. Like what is the economics of that deal look like?
For paying them.
Yeah. Is it, are you guys just paying for offtake?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we're essentially just, we are saying, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to give you a value for that gas. You were getting nothing before. Not only are you not going to lower emissions, you're going to create revenue off of this gas. Typically, it is a lot. That's probably the biggest disconnect with operators is you name out the price, and they say, well, Henry Hub is $7 an MCF right now. And then that's the part where you have to educate them and try to make them understand is not that our competition for the profitability of Bitcoin miners is not based on like us versus Great American Mining, Cathedra, like any other flare gas Bitcoin miner. It's based off of anybody that's plugging in hash rate. And roughly $1 an MCF equates to about a penny per kilowatt hour. The world average cost of power for Bitcoin mining is like 4 cents roughly, maybe a little bit higher now that energy prices have gone up, but like 5 cents. So if you're paying $7 an MCF, even if it still makes, technically you're still in the green, like making money on like a S19 XP or something like that, you are spending on a cost per kilowatt hour, you are less competitive than people that are on grid. And you're adding in all these extra variables, all this extra CapEx. So to me, it's like making them understand that the trade-off is you're adding in more variables, more CapEx in return for a cheaper cost per kilowatt hour.
Right.
Like that's the trade-off that we do.
Yep. And their benefit is they're getting rid of a flare and they're getting to monetize something. So
is it typically a single flare or is it typically like a field with a bunch of flares?
A lot of times it's wells that are gathered together. Yeah. They try to centralize their flare to a central point. And usually that's because they have a processing facility and they're stripping liquids. What I've seen a lot that I think about is physics and the way that it naturally flows for oil and gas, like how it was just all set up. It's just a perfect setup a lot of times for Bitcoin miners. And what I mean by that is places where they may not have a pipeline or enough capacity offtake for their methane. They may be saying, hey, this is still 1,800 BTU gas. We're going to strip everything and then get all the liquids out of this. And then we're going to have our residual gas left over. And then that makes it perfect for your Bitcoin mining operation because it's all at one pad now. It's just, it's organically it's like the economies of scale just organically falls together.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to another question. How much have you learned about the land side of oil and gas?
Like surface agreements?
Yeah, surface agreements and how much I am there, my client too.
We would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsor, Martin Legal Group.
The number one oil and gas Bitcoin mining lawyer.
Honest to God, thank God for you and Brandon Martin and Martin Legal Group overall. That has helped
check
me
really
a
is
ton.
in the mail.
Yeah. Please send the check to my P.O. box. That's really been extremely helpful. Because there's so many. And the other issue is, and you've seen this, it's still sometimes if you don't take extra steps, you still can do everything right and you're still kind of in a gray area.
Right.
It's a new industry. There's not laws on this. Like there's a reason Texas and Wyoming have congressmen and legislators that are building laws for this and putting in bills because it's so new that there is no laws for it. Right. So we try to be as conservative and proactive as possible, and that's why your firm has been so helpful with helping us say, what is the most steps we can take to make sure that we do this clean, we do this fair, and we do this right.
This is a good way to get a plug in there for our firm.
There you go.
You can call us at Martin Legal Group. But that is a big thing though. And you're right. That's kind of an area where there's a lot of gray areas still. And there's all this stuff will get worked out over time. But yeah, we do advise people to try to be as conservative as possible and just, make sure that you're getting agreements in place and working with people and being transparent. And you guys have honestly done a really, really good job of that. So what's that?
No, that's one of the things I see is Bitcoin miners try and be coy sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they try and we're bringing out data centers or they try and be act like what they're doing is proprietary. Like we always try and be very upfront, like because oil companies, they don't respect that at all.
No, they don't.
Like,
and especially, so a lot of what goes on in Bitcoin mining, that's a really good point on the proprietary stuff. It's like, yes, there's going to be certain things that I'm sure are very proprietary, but for the most part, I equate it to like drilling a well.
Yeah.
Like this is how you drill a well. Now there could be very minor differentiations within that, but the bottom line is you're drilling an oil well to get oil. You're drilling a gas well to get gas. You're putting a hole in the ground, you're hitting formation, you're bringing it out. It's the same thing with Bitcoin mining. It's like we got rigs, we plug them in, we turn them on, we generate electricity, and we power the machines. With what you guys have done, though, in kind of being a fully integrated group, and I'm not suggesting it's like proprietary or anything, but that to me is what is going to separate y'all from a lot of the other groups that are out there, is that you guys have brought basically so much of it in-house. Do you ever foresee a time where you guys might end up trying to actually operate some wells and own leasehold and things like do you see a world where that stuff would come together and integrate in that type of way?
I don't know as much on that side of things. I mean that to me is like horizontal integration, right? Like I mean, we're still trying to be.
We looked at that for a while and like just kind of like educated ourselves on the space. The issue you run into on that is like two things. One is the CapEx increases a lot, and the costs increase a lot.
Risk increase a lot.
Big time.
And the second thing is to us, there's such a huge flare market out there.
Right.
Like there is.
How big is that market? Do you know?
It's 46 gigs of power, which is like, as a country, for power consumption, would be like ninth in the world.
And so.
Oh, shit. Do you know how many wells that is?
I have no idea.
Oh, that's a lot.
No, but it's like 13,
that's a lot more than I thought.
Like 13 BCF a day.
See, my question about that too, though,
globally.
Is like, how do we? Because a lot of those wells are maybe IP'd and then they shut them, or that goes away and they get them to market. Right? They can't handle the gas right at the start, and so it is kind of hard to narrow that number down to what is actually a feasible for a Bitcoin mining company like yourself, right? To actually set up our own operations on or set up a hosting site. But one of the things, though, that I think is the market's going to evolve to is midstream groups getting involved in service companies, like even Halliburton and some of those types, where they get off of well, or they finish a completion, and they got a Bitcoin mine out there taking away some of the gas during the IP and early part of the production until it declines into a rate that can be taken to market. I do see like that is where I think a lot of this will go, but I think you guys are like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not suggesting you're ever looking for an exit necessarily, but I think you guys are going to have ample opportunities from a variety of different companies, whether it be Bitcoin mining groups, oil and gas companies, but also midstream companies looking at,
or somebody who just is really wanting to invest into the decarbonization ESG kind of stuff.
Right, that's another.
That's what I was going to say. Is this fits that perfectly?
It fits a ton of different areas.
Because one of the things, I don't care who you are, if you look at it, like the how much emissions you reduce and like the carbon negative side of flare gas Bitcoin mining. And like I said, like I know like Bitcoin maxis a lot of times they can get on a tangent. Everyone wants cleaner air. Right. Everyone's okay with that.
Yeah.
And so if you look at that and you look at it compared to other renewable options, the dollars, the amount of offsets you do per dollar invested in flare gas Bitcoin mining is absurdly higher.
Yeah.
On like, it's basically what I'm saying. You take $1 and you put it in any other renewable versus taking $1 and putting it towards flare gas Bitcoin mining and offsetting those emissions. The amount of emissions you reduce for every single dollar is absurdly higher than all other traditional markets.
If y'all have a graphic for that, y'all should be sharing that on social.
Yeah. We probably need to
y'all need to be just
make
post
one.
I need digital wildcatters.
Give me the data. We'll make you one. We'll put it out there.
Well, the thing is like we're interested in mitigating like methane and like having the most amount of megawatts on the ground, right? And we can do that more effectively if like our generators cost half the price. We can do that more effectively if we could make a generator 3 times quicker than like most other people because we internalize that. So like we're not necessarily like so like interested in like how much Bitcoin can we mine. We're interested in is like how can we get the most megawatts on the ground, and then like if we need to host it, like great, we'll do that. But like that's more power consumption.
Of course, we're believers in Bitcoin, and we're like we're gonna hodl Bitcoin. But our view is, it's like, if this is a problem that needs to be tackled and we focused on building out vertical integration, and our value is, we don't create the ASICs, right? So we're kind of in the same boat relatively as everybody else on purchasing ASICs. I'm never going to have a shop where I'm building my own WhatsMiner ASICs. But what we have done is we focused on building an infrastructure company. So we build the generators in the data centers, and that's where our talent is. So to like, in our opinion, if we can go out and we can just get as much market share as possible, both domestically and internationally, because that's a good point you brought about the big decline curves. I feel like that's the epitome of the Permian Basin, in my opinion, right? Like that's why you don't see large scale Bitcoin mining operations in the Permian Basin. Is yes, there's a lot of flaring in the Permian for 15 days, 30 days, and then they're putting it into market. But if you go internationally, you have these places that they don't have the infrastructure to get that gas to market. And it is midstream places. Just like you were saying, you're talking about how you're going to see a growth of midstream companies. I think you're going to see a lot of midstream companies that they have all these wells in these areas of their country that are gathered, and they're getting some of it to market, but they're flaring so much methane.
Do midstream companies in the U.S. flare at all? Is there ever a situation where that makes sense?
They do.
Yeah, some.
But I'd say it's intermittent.
It is intermittent. It's not nearly.
If you're going like international,
internationally, it's like a whole different. There's two places, in my opinion, that have very consistent flaring: the Bakken and internationally, right? And that's a broad one on the second one, but really and truly, we are blessed to be a part of the United States, being in a first world country that has great energy infrastructure, where most of our gas gets to market. You go to other countries and that's not the case. They can truck that oil all day long. They don't have the money and have it, like all the infrastructure they've invested in for their natural gas is maxed out. Like their pipelines are maxed out and they're not getting it to market.
Where has outside of the US, where's some of the biggest, what are the countries that are flaring the most?
Middle East, of course, is huge. South America has a lot of potential. Mexico has a lot of potential. Like there's all these countries. Argentina has a lot of potential. There's all these countries that have a ton of potential. And so our view is, if we're an infrastructure company that has the cheapest ability to offset flares compared to anyone else in the industry, just go take as much market share as possible. Like go build out everywhere. Then you could go you can do self-mining, and we can be putting Bitcoin on our balance sheet because we do believe in Bitcoin, but you could also be doing hosting and stuff like that. And we're not opposed to that as well, because one, that's generating cash flows for Giga and that's building up our company, but it's also allowing the Bitcoin mining industry to move off and move on to applications like this and move to where it's more distributed, right? So a lot of hosters, they'd love to be in a distributed network. And how much better is that as well if they're like, oh, we're on a carbon negative
I was going to say,
operation.
It helps defeat that narrative against the energy usage. And it's like, man, like we should be taking all that stuff as much as possible.
And we realize that a lot of big Bitcoin mining companies will probably never figure out flare gas Bitcoin mining.
They won't. They're not capable. It goes back to the operational technical like difficulty of operations on flare gas versus going on grid and just building a big warehouse. It's tremendously different.
99% of your downtime came from fuel or the generators. Right.
Yeah. 100% of the time that was 99% true. Yeah. So it's like,
generators are the killer. Like
they are. And we've had receps and pretty big ones all together. Dude, it was brutal. It was brutal sometimes, but we did get to like 92% runtime. So
that's why I get frustrated though when people, they try explaining to me, they're like, oh no, you're wrong. I can go buy this generator that's low hour. That's such a broad term. Low hours, right? Low hours. So much cheaper and run it. And I say, okay, but one, you do that enough times, you're going to get burnt bad. And it's going to cost you more money than you've ever would have dreamed of. And the second thing is you are cheaping out. You don't have to, and I'm not saying you have to go get the most expensive thing in the world, but anyone that's trying to find this used market and just like fix it up to where it's barely running, you're cheaping out on literally your power plant. Right. Like that would be the same thing as ERCOT saying, we're going to get this, like we're going to do
it as cheap as possible over here. Yeah.
In New Mexico, we found an ERCOT laying around that was used and we're just going to fix it up a little bit and it'll be good enough. Right.
Well, and the same like the real reason, there's a million reasons why we did it, but like operationally, the same guys who manufacture the generators are the same ones who maintain them.
Right.
How many times did you have issues on your generators with the freaking ECU killing it for no reason? You couldn't figure out why the kill switch was going off.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, and then how many of your generators had the exact same control panel? Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Is like we want to someone go up, take a left, look at it, and know where a button is. Like we want the exact same program to be duplicated on every single generator with the exact same parameters.
Yep.
Oh well, like we have the power factor at 0.8 instead of 1. Like that's why it's doing it when it gets too high. Like there's just so many variables with it. It's like at some point you can expect like a third party to do it.
You guys are so efficient, dude.
You guys are so strong. So you guys start like once these are out there. I mean, it sounds like on the ones that you guys are not operating yourselves, right? On the let's just say look at the generators and the containers and stuff. Is there a whole service maintenance side to this, or like how do you
Dan, do you have people at all these locations where like when you sell them, do you go through a teaching basically the operator of how to handle this stuff?
Yeah, sometimes it depends. Like
Bitcoin pumper.
Bitcoin pumper. That's it, right? But like so, like on the power generation side, like an engine is an engine.
Right.
Almost everyone like has worked on a 3516 before for compression. So like that experience, like people are pretty familiar with, right? You got to get them up to date because we put a lot of tech into our stuff. So you got like the cool touch screens and like all the updated equipment. So like you got to learn on that side of things, and then usually because like Bitcoin is not like a teenager couldn't do it, but like a 20-year-old can do it. Yeah, like that's why I always say like it's not that hard, but like there's a level to it of like wanting to learn and understand it, and so like that's the part where it gets a little nuanced, and to get those efficiencies, you really got to like work on it.
Yeah.
What he's saying is like he could have done it. He couldn't have done it 5 years ago, but now that he's 24, he can do it.
Exactly. Nice. Have you guys been approached by any oil and gas operators about maybe kind of getting exclusivity and teaming up with you?
There's never been talk about exclusivity.
We've had a lot of groups that I'm telling you, I really like. I don't know. Maybe we're just not seeing it from the right perspective, but oil and gas companies really don't care that much.
Yeah.
They'll talk about that to you. They'll mention, hey, we want to build a long-lasting relationship because one thing they are seeing, the groups that do have to flare, that do have to use Bitcoin miners, or use some kind of flare mitigation, they've been burned. There's a lot of groups that have already been burned by other companies, and now they're very hesitant to get back in the space.
In what ways were they burned?
Operational.
Like
messing up the wells, the casing,
not having it running when they have to shut in their production.
Yeah.
Like, I
don't blame them.
People getting electrocuted, life flighted out,
Were these just like early Bitcoin cowboys? Or
there was one this year.
There's some big boys.
Yeah, there was
doing
one
it.
earlier this year.
Okay.
Yeah. There's
very big boys.
There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. And I will say that's the one thing. They don't mention exclusivity. They mainly say, if this works out well, we would love to only use you in the future for all of our flaring. And I've noticed that a lot of companies, when they talk to me, they'll go and they'll just name drop a company.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "You familiar with them?" They're like, "When you send us a bid, I want you to think about what you do."
Right.
Because we're oil and gas. We like building relationships. We like working together. We don't like people coming in and taking advantage of us.
Right. Because they were ignorant to an industry and weren't sure on pricing. I totally get it. I've had the same conversations. But you're right. I mean, oil and gas companies are not going to continue to get burned. And
no, they're smarter than that.
Yeah. So. I agree. Dude. I mean, these guys are impressive. Impressive dudes. I do think because of where we're going through right now with this bear market, and everybody's just kind of there's going to have to be a lot of people disappear. They already have.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys are like primed to really end up grabbing a ton of market share right now. Because
timing is like everything. I don't know. I know, like maybe, I don't know. Maybe y'all realize that. Maybe you don't. Like we realized the same thing for Wildcatters too. Like we started in a downturn. We had no foresight to what it would become. And then like my whole career was a downturn, and now it's like a major upswing for like all of energy. Like you could have never called that.
Yep.
Like,
Right.
This is where like the best businesses are built, is right when you start in that downturn and you catch those tailwinds. So you guys are so positioned to just like continue to crush it.
I think you're going to dominate, because it's like you get through this and you guys are sticking around. It's like all those guys who are like getting on a well site here, getting on a well site there, all those relationships that are going to end up getting crushed because
unfortunately,
I mean, I'm not rooting it on, but it's
inevitable. Yeah, a lot of points.
Right.
Let me ask you this: why have some of the, like we just talked about, the herd seems to be thinning a little bit during this last downturn. What are we attributing that to?
So like there's problems. So you have externalities in the oil field with natural gas Bitcoin mining. Key point: rental generators.
Yeah.
Right.
Why would you rent a generator to a Bitcoin miner who doesn't know what they're doing, who's going to complain more, uses your stuff at 100%, 24/7, 365? When you could be sending to someone in the oil field that doesn't have all those complaints and knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they last longer.
So pretty much the rental market pretty much dried up, and they were like, we're
doubled in price.
Doubled in price.
Doubled.
Well, I mean, because oil and gas guys, like Bitcoin miners, are sitting there whining, saying, "Can you do 3.5 cents, 4 cents?" Oil and gas guys, if the rental company calls and says, "Hey, it's going to be 6 cents per kilowatt hour," they're like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah,
Like, my home bill is like 8. Like,
Sounds like a deal.
Huge to me.
That's the biggest one on that side of things. So people got burned on that on contracts that are expiring, have expired. Second point is some people have tied contracts to market rate of natural gas or some variable, right? We keep all of our stuff static. So like some people have it as a percentage of Henry Hub. I didn't see that coming, of course. I didn't even know what Henry was until 3 years ago.
Who's Henry?
Yeah.
He's gonna keep a lot of money.
Yeah, no.
We never, even in 2019, I knew we never wanted to have gas purchase agreements tied to hub pricing, because the thing is it's different if hub increases by 3x and your revenue increases by 3x. But it doesn't.
It's not tied necessarily.
In this time, this is why everybody's defaulting right now. It's because a lot of grid prices are still tied to natural gas.
Right.
And this time, energy is going up, Bitcoin profitability is going down. And so what's interesting is like we got to experience the last bear market of all of 2020, and we were building out all of 2020, and we really got to see just the reward of like you were saying, when it just takes off, it takes off. And man, the difference though that I'm seeing this time, which is why I'm like, I'm kind of bearish on large scale, like on grid, and I'm bearish right now on ERCOT and stuff like that, is because last time that you had a bear market, great, everybody was buying up ASICs and doing these projects, getting cheap ASICs, but they were also getting like 2 cent, 3 cent power because natural gas was $2 an MCF.
Right.
This time, groups are the cheap ASICs are there, which if you notice, that's why right now you can go buy any ASIC you want. They'll probably
12 months ago you couldn't find anything.
They'll probably get the CEO to deliver it to you with a bow on it right now, right? Like they're trying to offload miners, and it's because yes, ASICs are cheap, and everybody will look around and say, yeah, I think those ASICs, it's a great buying opportunity, but they don't have a place to plug it in because power is expensive, and I don't think energy's coming down anytime soon, in my opinion. I mean, we just have too much, we have too much demand right now, and especially the European market and our
gas
LNG.
has turned into a worldwide market.
Yes.
Right. And so it used to be right. It used to be regional and national. Now it's a worldwide market. As much as oil is, almost as much as oil.
So by utilizing all this stranded gas, you're essentially the lowest cost producer.
Absolutely, we're insulated from the market, and that's my view, and that's what. Matt was the one that was really behind, like, hey, we need to push power generation. It was genius in retrospect, because I didn't realize how big of a difference it would have made. Yeah. But that's what we were looking at about a year ago during the bull market. Everyone was building so much faster than us. They were deploying 10 times quicker than us, than what we were. And I was, you finally kind of glance over your shoulder every now and then. You're like, well, maybe I should try, right? But we were frustrated with how much faster they were building, but they were renting all their generators. So they just have to show up, group plugs in, they go home, right?
Right.
We knew last fall during the bull market, we said, when things hit the fan and the bear and single digit hash price comes back,
right,
and it's a bear market, all these companies that rented everything and grew their company, they're now either going to disappear or they're going to have to do exactly what we spent the last 8 months proactively doing.
Start building their own generation.
Right? I guarantee you there's a lot of groups that are probably smaller off-grid miners that are probably looking into the buying generators, vertical integration.
Yeah, I know they are. I know they are. I get calls from them all the time now.
It's like we couldn't do that if it was just Matt and I.
Mm-hmm.
Us building that team and building that department of our company was huge for us. So, and I think that that's going to end up being a big part of our company long term. Is just the fact that we do power generation in house.
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And actually, the groups that are like coming kind of out of the woodwork now, not that there's a ton of them, but the ones that I'm getting calls from now, it's a lot smarter money. And it's a lot of people that are recognizing the stuff that you guys recognized a couple of years ago, that the side that you need to focus on, whether you're talking to operators or banks trying to get money or just investors, is the infrastructure. And that's the play in the power generation. Like that is because what you said too, the financing off of it gives you a hard asset that you can utilize to grow your business and grow your business on terms that make sense. Like, you guys know some of the freaking loans out there and like the financing options for Bitcoin related opportunities.
18% interest.
It's insane. Yeah. It's like loan shark stuff. It's terrible. And but having that hard asset, I mean, that is genius. I was especially, again, I hate to tout on the fact that you guys are 17 years old. You've gotten 2 years older during this conversation.
It's going up.
Senior year of high school has been crazy this year, man. Yeah, I got homecoming tonight.
You excited for prom?
Matt's got a football game tonight.
Oh yeah, Friday Night Lights, man. Right? It's exciting, but seriously, for you guys to recognize that so early on, I mean, you guys really impressed me.
Well, thank you. Looking back, advice that I could give to people. And I guess it's different now because right now I would say in a bear market, buy as many ASICs as you can, really and truly. But in a bull market, in retrospect, a lot of these flare gas miners would have been a lot better if they would have realized where their value really was and the fact that they're cheap power generation. And instead of renting generators and saying, I can rent generators and I can get leverage on all these ASICs, 18% interest. They should have said, hey, let's take the money and go buy generators that are hardcore assets that are going to keep their value and go host in a bull market instead of taking 18% interest. And they would have paid off all their infrastructure. Their hosting contract probably would have almost been up by now. And their infrastructure would have been basically paid off. And they could just go, and you know, that's also assuming like, I guess if you did hosting at $60,000 Bitcoin and 8 months later, it's 500,000. Then you probably look like the biggest idiot in the room. But to me, like there's kind of this range of hash price that we have seen over the last 3 years that it always bounces up and down on. And people knew, like we all knew at $60,000 Bitcoin that we were in a bull market. Things were like out of hand. So I guess in my opinion, it's like in retrospect, and we didn't host anything last fall, but we also didn't take out 18%, and like,
were
we
you
didn't
borrowing against all your Bitcoin?
Yeah, we didn't time it. We didn't do it. Perfect. No. Oh God, no.
You get double squeezed, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's like,
and so like
this is what a margin call is.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Now I know. Yeah.
Oh, it gets worse too.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying is like, if they would have focused more on infrastructure and less on saying, I need as many petahashes tomorrow as possible, they probably wouldn't be sitting insolvent right now.
Look, some of the things you're saying, I'm looking at like, we had that thought process and we screwed it up. You know what I mean?
But,
like
we're learning.
Yeah, you learn. But like, again, at such a young age, you guys have just really, I don't know, you impressed the crap out of me, man. So
I got one last question.
Yeah,
before we wrap up. Are you guys able to just totally fund through cash flow and just hodl all the Bitcoin? No.
How much time do you spend fundraising?
So we're venture capital style. So we've gone through a pre-seed and a seed, Series A may or may not be in the works, but we don't do a ton on it as much as you'd think, right? Because a ton of our capital has gone into like manufacturing and the overhead of like, okay, now I gotta buy like a crane. Like, where do I get that? Right?
How big is y'all's team now?
We have about 27 on that side, but like 20 of that is manufacturing, like guys with 10, 20, 30 years of experience, welding, fabricating, pipe fitting, like all the cool stuff. We try and be very much heavy on the blue collar side and light on the white collar side.
Load heavy, office light.
That's the way to be, man.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been a blast.
Yeah, dude.
It's been
This
fun.
is-
You guys are great, man.
Yeah.
I love talking about
I just had like an epiphany. I've been podcasting 6 years,
Mhm.
but the difference between this and anything else we've ever done, it was this and like the last episode, is that everybody knows each other. Like, so like because you're sitting here referencing Gideon and we're referencing Griffin and stuff. We all know each other.
yeah,
And it's a small, like tight knit community.
The
whereas
circle's
like
small.
whereas like
It's
yeah,
very
it's,
small.
it's like really
Yeah.
small. But like
You're
with
gonna
oil
be
and
out
gas
of
startups,
episodes.
it's like
I know. We're like,
Soon.
well, who are we
Yeah.
going to? You guys
So
will be back
Brent
on
and
next
then
month.
me.
Yeah.
We're
Round
separate.
two.
One at a time. One at a time, so we get throughout the month. But yeah, I agree. I like having it to where I mean, we were on a call earlier today talking
Yeah.
talking business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's the fun part about this. I think that I'm excited about is everybody that we're going to talk to, we probably know, and we get to just talk
I
shop.
love that I just get to hang out with you guys. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm the dumbest person in the room when it comes to mine because I don't have that experience.
No,
So
no,
it's
man.
this is fun.
Yeah, you're going to be a guru by the time.
There
Yeah,
you
you
go.
That's the
will.
goal,
Yeah, you're gonna
man.
learn all this.
We always
Yeah.
tell people, we're like, I say, hey, we're trying to play the long tail, not only because we're young, we want to do this for a while, and we want to keep a good reputation, we want to do the right things, we want to build a good business out of this. But I also like all my friends now
It's
are the
fun,
people at the
yeah.
Bitcoin
Yeah.
meetups,
I mean,
right?
honestly, how cool is it? You guys have made up your own freaking jobs in a brand new industry. Not even out of school. You were in school. I think it's incredible, dude. I love it. Like, I had to get to be, 35 years old before I was up for part of starting a company. And you guys did it when you were like, well, I guess 5 years, 12. That's impressive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
9 years old.
9 years old, you guys.
First grade.
Yeah, but I mean, that's awesome. I'm really happy for you guys, and like, I don't know, I'm glad to get to work with you guys on the legal side, but
Yeah.
also, you be buddies. So,
Likewise. Well,
plus, my wife's like, you got to stop hanging out with 23-year-old dudes. Like,
I've often wondered that if like some of the other Bitcoiners, get told by their like family, like, hey, like, why are you hanging out with like Matt's got a TikTok? Like, what?
oh man, you got TikTok.
No,
huh?
I'm kidding.
Giga
Going
should get a
viral.
TikTok channel though. Actually.
Y'all should.
Yeah, we can
should.
do like
Should.
the like the memes where like the nurse is like in the room like doing the little
Yeah.
like Matt can like put it on the generator.
Yeah,
and,
so
like,
you get the whole team dancing. That'd be great. You guys should-
My name is Matt.
yeah.
The generators.
I think we need to do that. I think we need to do
All
that.
right.
So that's nice.
All right, I'll
That's
film.
nice.
All
All
right.
right. You'll film.
Yeah.
You'll be behind the
Or like
camera.
the what is it where it's the audio that it reads the audio and it's like the blend it's like
Oh,
OMG this check out this like it's like
You know a lot
basically
about
reading-
TikTok, man.
I've seen a few in my time. It's like,
oh man. All right. Cool. Guys, awesome. Thank you so much for doing it. And yeah.
Appreciate you having
thanks
us.
again for
Yeah.
having us. This is awesome.
Not unfortunately, but fortunately, we probably will have to have you back because there's only like 12 other people in the industry.
Yeah, no, we're just
So,
gonna keep having the same
Yeah.
conversation. So
Yeah.
no, this is fun.
yeah, thanks, guys.